Baby, ladies and gentlemen, it is the Gold Standard College Basketball Podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Big Poppa. That's Bobby Hoops. How you feeling today, Hoops?
A lot better than you do.
I wish this was a
For those just listening, what'd you just crack open?
A blackberry lemonade Waterloo.
Oh, okay.
Again, at this point, I'm like,
thank goodness.
I wish it was a beer. But that wouldn't be the worst thing, right? I mean, it's.
I mean, it would go with your outfit right now.
Yeah, if you're like out on wife lovers, then I'd say stick to the audio version of this. Maybe YouTube's not for you. At least the day that we put it out, which would be today.
Yeah, Big Poppa's in a dirty white tank right now.
I mean, it's clean. I got it out of the clean laundry.
After the last few days you've had?
The last 4 days have been about as infuriating as I've ever had being a Kentucky fan. Yeah. So at this point, it's one of those things that I don't even care if I feel dirty. The program is a complete dumpster fire right now. So there's that.
I'm sure we'll get to that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get there. This isn't the only thing about this show. We are going to clearly talk about first and second round happened. Not many super big upsets. Obviously, Kentucky was one of them, but there's probably only a handful. We kind of landed on just about all chalk. I think out of the 16, there were 12 teams that it was basically like you're a 4 seed or higher.
Yeah.
Got 111.
Outside of NC State, it has been a pretty chalky tournament so far.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand for the sake of, the magic and everything that goes along with the tournament, you want more. But at the end of the day, if you're also thinking well, I do eventually want to watch the best teams play each other eventually for the championship, like this, we're getting there. You're just getting an early head start instead of, say the Elite Eight going into the Final Four.
Which is kind of, I feel like, how a lot of folks, if we're honest, look at this tournament. Unless you're a real mid-major, just love the teams that don't get talked about as much, aren't Power 5, Power 4 type, conferences and things like that. This is usually how most folks want this tournament to go.
Yeah.
At least in regards to the big picture of you get a little bit of madness, you get some big upsets in the first weekend. But then when we're getting to the Sweet 16 Elite 8, it's the teams I know. It's the big boys. And that's kind of what we've got so far. I'm not saying that's right, but that's just probably the reality for a lot of folks.
I'll say it. I think it's right. But that's usually also including the team that I happen to pull for that historically has quite a bit of championships. So, yes, but I will defend it and say from like you were talking about, big picture, normally I am I want to see the best teams play each other.
Yeah.
Last year was probably the asterisk, if you want to call it that, where, I think the highest seed going into it was a 5. I can't remember if UConn was a 5 or whatever, but
UConn was a 4 last year. San Diego State was a 5 going to the Final Four and the championship.
Yeah.
I think Miami was a 3 or 4? I don't know. I don't know.
But at the end of the day, you still would like to see the best teams play each other. And, sometimes it just don't work out. Right now, we're probably heading that direction, but who knows? We'll see. I was pulling up the bracket right here, and we'll talk about, you can talk about this. Friggin' Yale took it to Auburn. Auburn fans, I know, were like, what was that all about?
Oops.
Oopsie.
Yeah, they had, what's his name, get ejected in the first 4 minutes.
I didn't get to watch that, and when you had sent it in the group text of Auburn just had a dude get ejected, I was like, there's no way. What was it for?
It was one of those things where he kind of got I'm pulling up their box score so I make sure I get his name right. But it's kind of one of those things. He's running down court, trying to get back on defense. He kind of bumps into this Yale guy. The Yale guy probably gives him a little bit of a shove to like in the process, but like
Sure.
nothing crazy. Just like, all right, we're getting physical. We're getting I got his name here. My brother upset with me right now. Chad Baker Mazzara. So he kind of gets bumped a little bit. They're kind of all right, it's a physical game. As soon as they get down on defense, Auburn steals the ball. They're heading back down on offense. And Chad turns around, he locks in on this Yale kid who just kind of shoved him, and he just rears back and drives an elbow right into his gut, like right in front of the ref too. It's one of those things where it was like,
Hope it was worth it.
Doesn't seem like it was worth it. They lost.
Yeah,
the game.
no.
He immediately gets ejected because, like, man, you can't you just can't do that.
No.
He gets ejected, immediately goes back to the locker room and starts firing off some tweets in the locker room.
That's right. Yeah, he did.
Man, that wasn't a great day for Auburn.
No, not at all. And it wasn't a great day for my bracket either. But, there was another team, not just my team, who really crapped the bed per se. And, we'll get into it. I got some flack for them last year, but whatever. They let me down again.
You talking about Colgate?
Shut up.
Let's not bury the lead.
DeQuincy? How do you pronounce Duquesne?
Duquesne. The Dukes from Duquesne.
The Dukes of Duquesne took down the Mormons of BYU.
Yeah, I had that pick wrong.
Sucks to suck. Me too. I picked BYU. Let's see. Took Drake. Maybe it wasn't a super shocking deal. They ended up beating Washington State. Who else? I think one intriguing game you and I were at least kind of had our eyeballs on, and it was the very first game of the tournament. It was Michigan State, Mississippi State.
Yeah.
I'd taken Mississippi State. I was like, I'm out on Izzo. He's done.
Yeah.
And then here we are. Here we are. Izzo somehow
and it
wins
seems
their first
to me like, well, one, and just talking about Mississippi State, the way that they looked against Tennessee the previous week, it's like, oh, this team might even, sure, they're gonna beat Michigan State easy, and they might give UNC a little bit of a run here. Like that's how they were looking. They were inspiring a lot of confidence. And then they came out and just got whipped by Michigan State. And it's like Izzo continues to do this thing where when you count them out, they make you regret that. But when you're expecting big things of Michigan State, they fall short. It's like I never know what to do with Izzo at this point in his career, where it's like he's gonna get at least one when you count him out of well, dang. All right, I guess you do got a little more in you.
All right, got one more in me, as Vince Carter would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the one so far that I got big time wrong and am continuing to get wrong. I thought for sure that New Mexico was going to just crush Clemson. New Mexico was going to cruise. I had New Mexico in my Elite Eight. I thought
that's not who I thought you said who you were going to say.
Oh, we can get to whatever you think I was going to say.
I thought you were going to say St. Mary's.
Oh, dude, that's like 3 years in a row I've believed in St. Mary's. And
remember St. Mary's got beat by a fake school of Grand Canyon in the first round?
Yeah, the fake school. They're not even they were showing all their fans in the crowd, and it's like these are just paid actors. This is not.
They are.
This is not real. But Clemson has just proven me wrong. I mean, I didn't buy for 1 second. They had a hot start to the regular season and just stumbled, bumbled, fumbled down the stretch. And I just thought, these guys. All right, I don't buy it for a second. Here they are in the Sweet 16. They've looked great.
Should I feel that way about Colgate? I mean, they got blown out,
dude. I don't know. I don't know what your thing is with Colgate, but you should probably quit on Colgate at this point.
They got blown out, guys. They got beat 92-67. It wasn't even close, and I had them going to the Sweet 16 also. But whatever.
I can't fault you too much. I've had a few big. I had Auburn going to my Final Four. I had Drake going to the Elite Eight. I had New Mexico going to the Elite Eight. Not that everybody wants to sit here and listen to us talk about how wrong our brackets were, but
it's still fun.
But hey, I like ball. Doesn't mean I really know it that.
No, we've never claimed to actually know ball. James Madison, the Pardon My Take game, took down
Wisconsin.
The
Dukes.
Yeah. How about that Colorado-Florida game? Colorado and Florida, 102 to 100. Comes down to
crazy game.
Florida,
kind of I mean, they were dead. They were dead, done. They were down I think it was 12 to 15 points with a minute and a half left.
Yeah.
And came roaring back to tie it, only for Colorado to just kill them with a buzzer beater. That was a crazy game.
Shout out to my boy Will Wade and McNeese just getting absolutely throttled by Gonzaga. 86.
I'll hang my hat on that one. I didn't buy the McNeese State crap for a minute, and they got trounced by Gonzaga.
And you had a really good argument too. It was like you had a solid backing for probably about a minute of don't buy the McNeese hype. And all I came up with was, hey, if they wear his T-shirts that he promoted to say everybody's coming after Will Wade, he's the bad guy, and if they've got their boombox going on the manager's shoulder in the locker room, then I'm taking them. They'll win by 30, and then they just whatever.
I mean, here Gonzaga is once again 9 straight years they've made it to the Sweet 16, and this was a season that many were writing them off. I mean, they were to some degree that was pretty valid for people to say that in the middle of the season. They looked like a bubble team.
They were talking about we don't even know if Gonzaga will make it.
This was the worst Gonzaga team for Mark Few in a long time. And then what happened? They went into Lexington and won, and that kind of turned their season around. And here they are once again in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, here they are. Just set another fire in Lexington. Hey, did South Carolina get exposed? Now, actually, did the SEC get exposed outside of Tennessee? And South Carolina got beat by Oregon.
Maybe Oregon's. I think we said this last week. Oregon, I think, was a team. They were a little bit of a trendy pick. I think Dana Altman is a great coach there, and he's taken Oregon on a few deep runs from low-seeded positions. They had a lot of injuries earlier in the year, and I think they were a lot better than their seeding. I also think Carolina's a good team, but yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe the magic ran out a little bit for Carolina.
Yeah. Let's sit here looking.
And then, I mean, Oregon almost. I mean, they took. It's weird because then in the second round, Oregon, takes Creighton to overtime, but still loses by 13. That was a kind of a weird game. But I think Oregon is a good team.
Yeah, like you said, Altman's a really good coach, even if he doesn't necessarily have all the accolades.
Yeah,
he gets guys to buy in when it matters, and then they perform. Sitting here, look at the round of 32 games. I mean, you already talked about it. Clemson, took it to Baylor. They're in the Sweet 16 for the first time, and I can't remember
I don't know when
they flashed it. It was it's been a very long time. Bama beats the fake school of Grand Canyon, so they're taking on North Carolina.
That game, did you watch most of that one?
Bama and Grand Canyon? Yeah, I would say I probably watched
a dogfight. That was every time the ball, if a shot was missed, it'd get tipped. Guys were diving on the floor. I mean, it was actually kind of a funny game to watch just by the craziness of it. And Barkley, post-game, absolutely flamed Grand Canyon. They had no scheme or strategy on offense. It was just 1-on-5 every time down, and Bama couldn't quite put them away. I mean, it was a hysterical game of basketball.
He wasn't wrong. I have to sadly admit, and this is kind of embarrassing, I went to bed and did not watch the Houston and A&M game. And of course, when I wake up, it was like, I can't believe I didn't watch that game. I can't believe I didn't say, granted, I was in a very interesting place, frame of mind.
Yeah.
The following day after watching Kentucky. So there was a part of me that was like, I'm not going to stay up for a 10, whatever time they get off at almost 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100-95. And I can't
In
believe
a
it went
game
to
that Wade Taylor played like crap pretty much.
Didn't Houston's 4 of their starting 5 foul out going into
A number of them did. But, I mean, if you're going to tell me that A&M is going to score 95 and come within, this close to beating a team that most people, including myself, think are going to win it all, and Wade Taylor's going to shoot like 5 for 27 in the game, like that was impressive by A&M. And maybe Houston let their foot off the gas a little, but they came roaring back real late in that game. It was an inspired effort by A&M.
Well, good for Buzz for almost taking down the number 1 seed. Don't be shocked if Buzz Williams isn't coaching at A&M after this year. We'll see. I don't know.
That's kind of what the tea leaves are, how they're reading.
That's how they read on Burner Ball. So I say we'll hit pause at least on the Sweet 16. We'll end on that note as like a good thing, and maybe just talk about what do we think on these games. Pick them, for the folks who actually made it. How would you like me to do we go ahead and just get the bad stuff out of the way first? Because I don't want that to like overshadow the entirety of this episode. Even though there's probably some people who are like, I've been waiting for this ever since the game ended. Turn the camera on.
Sure. Let me set you up a little bit.
Yeah, go for it.
So the first round last Thursday, the Kentucky Wildcats, the 3 seed Kentucky Wildcats, go down 80-76 to the 14-seeded Oakland Golden Grizzlies on the back of Jack Golke's 10 3-pointers for 32 points to put down Kentucky, who had a great showing from Antonio Reeves. Not so much from the freshman. Another disappointing exit for Kentucky. You've had days to stew on this, get angry about this, understandably so. What do you want to say, big fella?
Yeah. I want to first off, so I want folks to understand I didn't go to bed until 2 a.m. that night. The game tipped off at 7, so we were done by 9:15. I went to bed at 2 a.m. I think for about an hour and a half, I didn't answer texts. And I was about to say I didn't answer phone calls. Nobody called me, thankfully. But I was just, I think I may have gotten carpal tunnel in my left hand from just wearing out the message board on
thoughts and prayers,
Discord, KS board. Yeah. T's and P's, everybody. Just wearing it out on Twitter. And it was like, I felt like I was almost in a weird haze because I was full of what felt like disappointment, but also like, where's my pitchfork? I'm going to clean off and sharpen the ends and get in my car right now and drive to Lexington.
Like this has to be the end of John Calipari at Kentucky. Is what the thought was after that game.
Yeah, you would think. And then yesterday, evening, night-ish, our, everybody's beloved and favorite athletic director comes out and says, hey, you're 16. Here we go. Just cool. Can't wait for that. And it's very fascinating to watch Mitch Barnhart say, sure, let's do it again. Let's run it. It's like you and Cal do not get along.
Yeah.
And you're going to stick your neck out for that guy. Would Cal stick his neck out for you? Don't think so. I think he's made it pretty public several times that, it's almost like we don't exchange Christmas cards. What do you want me to say about the guy? So for the last 4 days, it's been more like I've said, going back to even I felt like the beginning of this year, probably the end of when last year ended and talking about losing to a second-round team in Kansas State, who was good. It wasn't like they were a bad team.
Yeah, they had a good run.
That it's just a dumpster fire up in Lexington right now.
And when you say dumpster fire, you were talking about it's not just Cal, it's and like his relationship with Mitch Barnes. It's like Cal's assistant coaches, it's the NIL, it's
Yep.
The representatives for these guys for the players who have representatives who they're not getting their NIL money on time or as much as they like. It is a mess from top to bottom right now when you say dumpster fire.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And Hoops said it at least before I did, just because I've exchanged quite a bit of text and what you would say is inside baseball knowledge of like, hey, here, by the way, this is what's happening in Lexington right now. So let's start with after the game. It makes me infuriated that Cal would go on a microphone and be like, man, I'm hurting the most. Like, they're crying in the locker room, but like, I'm hurting. And I'm like, nobody wants to hear your pity party. If the 18-year-olds are, that's fine. They're 18, 19, 20. But, I'm hurting the most. I turned my phone off for 3 days. You get paid $10 million a year. Quite frankly, I do not care. Go wipe your tears with all of your $100 bills. You are the winner in all of this. You get paid $10 million a year. Sorry, don't feel bad. You lost again in the first round. This means you have now lost in the first round with the National Player of the Year to St. Peter's. You had the National Returning Player of the Year in your second year with Oscar Tshiebwe lose to Kansas State. You then had the entire offensive artillery system, best scoring offense in Kentucky history that happened to be under you, the guys that you recruited, who majority are freshmen. Big Tone comes back, who, by the way, tried to leave because he knew that this is, quite frankly, not a great place to be right now, but he stayed.
Well, and last year, you've mentioned how Antonio Reeves rode the bench most of the year after transferring in and being like, I didn't come here to sit on the bench.
No, because he wanted to keep guys like Chris Livingston in because he didn't want to hurt their hearts or take it away from them, because I don't want them to get upset and kind of flounder at some point during the season. And I'm like, oh, so basically you just don't want to play the best players. You want to play your guy that you recruited instead of the best guys because of like a relationship with Clutch that's got you in between the legs. And you're like, okay, I'll play them. That's fine.
Yeah.
Even though
when you say relationship with Clutch, what do you draw that out of it? I know what you're talking about, but like Clutch is a sports representation company.
Correct. So it's basically a player agency that they can work with kids starting in high school. The idea is they at least link up with the best, or what they deem as like quality guys that they know are probably going to go play 1 year in college, or seek, like, in theory, overseas to Australia or OT, different options. Their whole point is we're here to help you streamline the process of, say, play 8 months of some lower basketball in order to launch you into the first round of the draft. That's their whole deal. They have connections. Okay, so be it. Well,
because we have to say this, I guess, pretty much every episode, Clutch is a LeBron James based company. It's like his representation started their own Clutch Sports. We represent all the good young athletes. Yeah. Check off the LeBron James mention.
And that's enough to talk about LeBron James. You're welcome, LeBron. So a couple of the guys that are represented by Clutch happen to be playing at Kentucky, Justin Edwards and Aaron Bradshaw. There was word that tried to get out like, oh, well, like Justin Edwards guy, he was or is a side contractor with Clutch. And it's like, doesn't matter. I don't freaking care if it's the head of Clutch or an agent with, like, you're still with the Clutch sports brand. And it's known that Clutch tried to keep Aaron Bradshaw from going to Kentucky. They wanted him to go to USC to link up with Bronny. Justin Edwards was more of a, Justin just made his own decision. And Kentucky, so Aaron Bradshaw ends up at Kentucky. And it's known that during the season, that they wanted Aaron Bradshaw to enter the transfer portal. And Scoop gets dropped literally the day of the Oakland game that Aaron Bradshaw will be entering the transfer portal, like when the season ends. And it just is like, okay, this is the world we live in. Like,
oh yeah,
there's to a degree, it shouldn't be that shocking, but you're also probably a little caught off guard as I was when you're like, oh, well, it's one of the kids
like
of
the day of the game. That news comes.
Yeah, of course it drops the day of the game. Awesome. So that's Clutch Sports. That's a little bit of going back to what I was saying with Cal and talking about he's going to play certain guys because he's, trying to appease the Clutch crew. And, but he always phrases it as like, oh, I believe in them. I'm the only one who's believing in them. I don't want them to not believe in themselves. And it's just like, oh no, you're just not playing the best players. So by that, I mean, he did not play Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepherd like in a starting role basically the entire season. There was a handful of games when it came to injuries. But other than that, they always came off the bench. And my classic, well, he would go on about, well, I mean, they come in 2.5 minutes later. Why should I even start them? And I'm like, that's the point. If they're coming in 2.5 minutes into the game, why do you not start them?
They're so good that you have to have them in as much as you do because, of course, they're incredible players.
Yeah.
Why are you playing this game? Just start the best players.
So there's that, I guess, to a degree. What else have I talked about? The assistants. It's starting to come out that the assistants are lazy, unprepared. Quite frankly, a little bit of a joke amongst coaches in the coaching world in general. And this isn't like in college basketball. This is like NBA guys sit and observe because they are scouting guys at Kentucky, but they can sit there and quickly say, you run no offense. It'll get pitched that it's, man, 5 wide, we are growing. We're doing this whole new thing, blah, blah, blah. And NBA guys are like, y'all are doing nothing. You just happen to have really good athletes that, yes, if they're good enough, they can take guys off the dribble, go one-on-one and get a bucket. And that can come off I'll be honest, I was fooled to thinking like, oh yeah, we're running the new updated style of offense where, you have like a 5-man who can step out and shoot.
Sure,
do we have 2 of those? Yeah, sure. But
especially coming off the heels of what Kentucky was the previous 2 years when it centered around Oscar Tshiebwe, who's a down low bruiser. We're funneling it through a big man down. Like this team is drastically different than the team the last 2 years, and I think you would say that like in a good way, like a breath of fresh air of like, we've got, at any time, 3 to 4 guys on the court who can all heat up really quick and score a lot of points really quickly.
Yeah.
And when it happens and it's clicking like it was in Knoxville a couple weeks ago, like, holy moly, you're going to beat everybody.
Yeah. When you have 3 to 4 of them clicking and they're all on the floor at the same time, it's just pick your poison.
Yeah.
I mean, like you can guard 2 or 3 of them, but like one of them is going to be open and you can't stop it. And if you switch, you're just going to leave another one. So, I don't know, for whatever reason, we just decided to go away from that against Oakland. Oh, and by the way, Oakland plays zone. You're telling me for an entire week, you pull we didn't know what to do. It was like, they play a zone. Did you think that just came out of nowhere? They played a zone the entire game. That's all they played all season, but yet you didn't know how to attack it with your offense? Hoops. There were certain times that Cal would tell them to go 1 versus 5. He would just point at like Rob Dillingham or somebody, just be like, go make a play. So you want him to go 1 versus 5 in a zone?
Oh, dude, I am no Kentucky fan, but watching that game, it was so frustrating to watch Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepherd have no clue what to do. And that is not at all a shot on those 2 guys. They are amazing players. They were uncoached. They were not prepped. They had And of course they're freshmen, they're young, and of course Cal came out after the game and heaped a little bit of blame on the freshmen that the freshmen weren't ready, and it's like, my
Hey,
guy, that is on you, partner.
yeah, who recruited those guys?
This team is built for March. It didn't look like it.
Who recruited those guys?
Yeah, coach them.
I know he doesn't play them, but if they are unprepared and don't know what they are doing when they step out on the court, because you pull we're worried about us. We don't really do scouting stuff, like just us. Who's in charge? You know what he said about
the one play that stuck out the most to me. I think Kentucky calls a timeout. There's like 48 seconds left. We're down 4. Antonio Reeves, who was the shining light for Kentucky in that game, who played fantastic, kept them in it all game. He's white hot. He's got like almost 30 points at this point. Call the timeout, inbound it to Reed Shepherd, who again is a fantastic player, but he wasn't last Thursday. He had one of the worst games. He's in blue. He didn't have it.
Yeah.
And inbound it to Shepherd. He slowly dribbles the ball up court. We're not running a play, nothing. He just jacks and bricks a 3.
Mm-hmm.
Turn the ball over. And it's like, how can that be what we do out of a timeout, down 4, under a minute? How can that be it? You don't even get the ball to Antonio Reeves. I mean, it was just like, as soon as that happened, I'm like, they don't got a shot. Because Cal's just rolling the ball out there and say, go figure it out, 18-year-old.
Yeah. And by the way, they're super tight and are freaking out. I mean, the only guys who weren't freaking out were Antonio and Trey Mitchell. Trey, came out of nowhere and finally had a good game after. And like, I know he had like a pretty decent shoulder injury, so it took him several games to kind of get back in it. But I mean, my man's a grad senior, so I know that he and Tone were like, this is it. Like, what are we scared of? Like we've played a lot of ball. So they went out and did their thing. And I appreciate them. And I'm really sad, especially for Tone. Like, I just, rode the bandwagon the entire time. And I'm like, cool. My man has to go out early in the tournament again. And it's just for not, it's whatever. We're done. So, there's that lazy, unprepared staff. You got one staff member who is said to be bellied up at Jeff Ruby's, on 6 nights a week. Can't be found. And by the way, I'm talking about Chin Coleman, and he's supposed to be the defensive guru. And hey, how did I describe the defense all year long? What was it?
Toilet paper.
Wet toilet paper. Okay. We got Bruiser Flint, who I jokingly in a group text said he's your uncle that one of the kids on your rec team was like, hey, my uncle said he'll coach. He knows a little bit of ball. He played in high school, whatever. And you're kind of like, whatever, fine. That's fine. And then you come to find out later, it's like, oh, he doesn't do anything. He just shows up in his tracksuit and is popping in bubble gum the entire game. And you look over and you're like, what are you do? Anything? Nothing? Okay, cool. And he's like, I'm just fine to be here. So he's getting paid a lot of money just to sit. Who else we got?
Well, like you said, like almost all of these guys, for the most part, are just Cal's boys that he brings in and isn't staying on top of them, isn't expecting better, isn't holding them accountable. Clearly,
no, not hold them accountable because his idea, and I get the sense of I'm trying to hire the best guys in order to do the jobs that I hired you to do so that I can go what Cal is his best, which is being a master recruiter and basically a master motivator. It is quite frankly unbelievable how he can get the best talent and get them to buy in for 8 months to say sacrifice for 8 months. And I promise you, everybody, what he'll say is like, everybody eats, everybody succeeds. Multiple of you will get drafted, all those things. And he has a pretty decent track record of that. That's not he had 1 year and everything flamed out. But when you find out things such as that of, well, we can't find our D coordinator because he's usually at Jeff Ruby's. So Cal then has to figure out, how do I take over the offense now, the defense. Now, Cal already runs the offense. However, he did hire a guru from the NBA to come basically he's the development player guy. So very much more one-on-one stuff. But he runs a lot of analytical things and says, like, here, Cal, like, this is what the numbers say. Then it's up to Cal to decide, do I listen or do I not? Sounds like he wasn't doing a whole lot of listening. Other than, hey, go make a play. Just yelling, go, fight. Like, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Come to find out, several of them are rats. And talking of like Chin Coleman, who lies to Antonio Reeves about NIL stuff. And there was a big story that came out, and the guy called in to KSR and was like, this is true. A card trading guy who owns a shop in Lexington in Nashville. He has like relationships in a partnership with like Will Levis and some other cats who are on the football team. Offered Antonio Reeves, or so the way it works is you contact one of the staff people at Kentucky. They talk to Cal. Cal kind of either, gives the yay or nay. And he contacts the staff, contacts Chin to say, I want to offer Antonio a $100,000 deal for NIL just to come sign cards or, any memorabilia stuff, which sounds like, okay, it's pretty easy. Right. Comes out that he never said anything. And then the card trading guy took it as like, maybe I guess Antonio just didn't want it, found a better deal, which he was like, I get it. If you find a better deal than $100,000, like, great, good for you. Like, I'm not going to be mad at you. It comes out that Antonio was like, I never knew about it. Never was told. And the card trading guy also he finds out over social media. That's when the whole stuff going on with him possibly transferring. And that's why he'd honestly reached out. He's like, I want to offer this as a way for him to stay at Kentucky.
Yeah.
So he was like, I kind of took it as like maybe Antonio left. Then he's like, I find out he's back. And I'm kind of like, what's up here? And then Antonio and his dad reached out to that guy and said, hey, do you have any small deals that you're running? And he goes, did you not get my first offer of $100,000 deal? And they're like, oh, they're like, no, we did not. Interesting. Like, obviously that he would have said yes. So there's that, and then just the like feeding lies to local media to put out that basically like everything's fine, no problems in house. But it comes to find out that like they treat the athletic department like POSs. They're not fun to be around. They'll talk about how they're supposed to go to compliance meetings that every single coach that's hired by the University of Kentucky at any sport has to go to. None of the assistants would go. Why? I don't know. And I know that's not basketball, but it's just as a microcosm of this isn't okay.
It goes beyond what happens on the court. It's a messed up model.
There's, I feel like there's about 20 or other items that I haven't even touched on. This will probably be the last one, and this is NIL related. And this just goes back to, this is one of Cal's boys that he hired to basically be over NIL for what's called the La Familia Club, which is just Cal's arm for NIL purposes. It's purely for the basketball team. And of the 15 donors, 12 of them also Cal guys. And the guy who was over it, Chris Woolard, was just skimming like 20% plus off the top anytime a check was cut. And players would be like, hey, you said I was supposed to get X. I got less than that. Like, what's up?
Oh, no.
I don't. So, so understandably, some voices were starting to get pretty raised about like, what's going on here? What's this deal? And then it just, I've said it before too, that the basketball department lives on an island and is not associated with the athletic department at all. So
let me ask you. So like, you just laid out a whole lot of crap of what's been going on. Yeah. And like, for you to know this, you to know all this stuff, I know this isn't an insult to you. You're a realtor in Powell, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Like, for you to know all this, Mitch Barnhart, the AD's got to know all this, you would think, mixed with the disappointment after disappointment after disappointment of the last, 5-ish years. Were you surprised to hear that all that we know all this and still come on back, Cal? We'll give it another try, one more year. Do you think it's some of that? There's not a real guy out there that we feel great to fire Cal to go get, and obviously he's got a big buyout. So all this is true, and yet he's coming back.
I was surprised to see the absolute just dysfunction in the entirety of the system. Not just, man, we're just not able to win ball games, but we've got
more than that.
The system's good. We, everybody loves the staff. We all get along. It's not that. I mean, the entire thing needs to be blown up and start from scratch. And I honestly think that's part you need to get rid of the entire staff, including Cal. When he says the same thing that he said after the game with Oakland that he did after the COVID year, which is everything's on the table. Everything's on the table. Top to bottom, I will look at assistants. Also, it's you've been saying that for 5 years. You said it after COVID. You said it after St. Peter's. You kind of alluded to it a little bit last year after the Kansas State game. And then you said it again. And you want to continue to throw kids under the bus when you're questioned directly of what's the issue? I mean, you've now lost another game. Why were guys off? Why didn't it go well? And all he says is you got to ask them. You got to ask them.
The nerve.
You're the guy. You're the guy. You are the CEO. This is your team in your program.
Yeah.
No, you got to talk to them. They're 18, dude. And of course, when you go talk to them, they're going to be like, it's on me. It's my fault. And it's it ain't their fault. They're 18,
you weren't set up, man. You weren't set up well. And that's where
did not.
That's where I think post that loss, whatever the channel was, CBS, TBS, whatever, they cut back to the studio. And they're sitting there is two-time national champion Jay Wright, who many revere as if we could, so many programs, if we could get Jay Wright to come out of retirement, he's like the golden goose, white whale for everybody right now, which I don't think that's going to happen. He seems pretty happy in retirement. But I thought he so eloquently, and he clearly has he likes Cal a lot. I think they're buddies. He has a lot of respect for Cal. But I just thought it was so interesting to hear him comment on what basketball is now versus what basketball was when Cal got there. And him talking about how these kids that Cal recruits to this school are going to be set up for life for the most part, are going to be better NBA. Oh, what up, Finn? There's Finn.
What up, Finn?
Anyway, these kids are going to be far better NBA players than anyone they play any week in, week out, but they're not better college basketball players right now. And that's what you are coaching is college basketball. And he has gotten away from, because I think, would you say 15 years ago, Cal was more than just a recruiter. Now, 15 years ago, you could get John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins and just roll the ball out and probably win pretty much every game. But we've talked since we've started doing this podcast about the waters of college basketball have risen. There are better college basketball players and systems and coaches everywhere than there were 15 years ago. And Cal has not changed. He has not changed with the times, like a Nick Saban or other Mike Krzyzewski, other greats who changed the way they did this as they've gone on, which is what made them so great. And Cal hadn't done that, and here we are.
he like in a weird way he thinks he has, and it's like you haven't. I mean, even
Yeah.
after the game in Oakland, he was like, "We got to be bigger, physical, older." And it's like you went older. You did try that with Oscar Sheboy, Kellen Grady, Tone, Trey. I mean, you've done that. I mean, in 1 year after for the St. Peter's year, it was basically all portal guys, and you
Mhm.
flopped. Here's the issue, I think, at the root of it is you still think that it doesn't matter if you get the best guys out of high school or he thinks he gets the best transfers from the portal. You still think you can just roll the ball out and not play offense. You
The
think it's
problem
just
at Kentucky has never been about the Jimmies and the Joes. They've always got the best Jimmies and the Joes for the most part.
yeah,
It's the X's and the O's, which used to not matter as much. But
it did.
like,
You're right. 15 years ago, it didn't because, like you said, the talent wise, like across the board, you were head and shoulders better than essentially everybody.
yeah,
So, yeah, it could work when you recruited a 17, 18-year-old who was just unbelievable in high school, and it could still work as long as you give them enough. And it again, it worked. He won a national championship with all freshmen and one senior. But
yeah,
otherwise, that doesn't still work. And I think he's just convinced that, like, I can still do it my way. While everybody else is trying to zig, he still thinks he's zagging. And it's like, you're just doing the same thing that you've been doing since you got to Kentucky, which is I'm just going to roll the ball out and say, my guys are better than yours. We're not going to worry about scouting. Just going to tell my boys to fight. They're going to go make a play and talent's going to win out. You've been that the last 5 years, just like it's not working. And your one championship bought you a long leash, but that it's up. And I thought it was up several years ago. And unfortunately, that leash somehow magically got longer and reappeared because the athletic director said he's coming back. Now, could part of that decision go to he was like, we don't really have the money, and meaning $33 million, and 33 is like the minimum because then you don't count in if you go get another coach like Scott Drew, you got to buy their contract out.
mm-hmm.
And plenty of other millions. That can quickly add up and double in the amount. I understand. But I'm so flabbergasted at I can't believe as I've jokingly said, I can't believe they're letting the bad man stay in Lexington. They're letting him stay and using it as you got one more. And I'm like, this was your one more. This was the entire class. This was the recruiting class that you were chomping for 2 years about, saying, hey, you wait until I get these guys.
Yeah.
These are my guys. And you went out in the first round. You said
and I know you feel that way. And I know you're not the only fan in blue that felt that way about this year. But I feel like, what do I know? But it seems like this was as close as it has ever gotten, like by a lot to that. Oh, this is over, or very close to being over. I mean, it seems like the entire fan base. I know you still mention you've got your Cal defenders who will defend him for life.
Yeah.
But I have to think that has to be such a small pocket of, maybe I'm ignorant to it, but I have to think at this point, after the last 5 years, it really has got to be. I mean, Mitch, especially for Mitch Barnhart, like, hey, next year, buddy, your back it has never been more against the wall. And I know you could keep going talking about Mitch Barnhart and his, lack of getting the job done in a lot of ways, but I mean,
Yeah.
and maybe we can save Mitch Barnhart for another podcast, but man, it's going to be very interesting to see what next season looks like for Kentucky with how it ended and how close it seemed like it was going to be the end for Cal.
Yeah. I'll end it with this because I want to move on to things that are more fun, like the fact that your team's still in it. There's just more games going on. Like we still have another 2 weekends. And because we'll have more shows, I'll have plenty of other time to give thoughts, even because this offseason for me is going to be terrible. It's going to be awful. I want to give a shout out to you, the Cal water carriers. I want to give you a shout out because for whatever reason, I wish I had a friend like those guys. I actually do. You're one of them and several other guys. But hypothetically, get you a friend like those guys because they are dying for an invite to his birthday party so they can kiss his ring. I'm like, well, he doesn't care about you. As long as his $10 million check clears, he doesn't freaking care about you. So shut up. Nobody gives a freaking rip about how much you will ride for your boy. It's like you just don't care about Kentucky. You care about Cal. And somehow in your world, the University of Kentucky has now become the University of Calipari. And you think everything will blow up when he leaves. Like, no, you know what? Go hold his hand while y'all walk off into the sunset up to his New Jersey beach house. And you can go comb his hair, feed him grapes, fan him with a freaking flower. I don't care. Go with him. Other than that, that's for the Cal people.
Wow.
The staff, it just needs to blow up. Cal needs to leave. Leave us. You have leased your time in rented space for 15 years. Please, for the love of God, pack your stuff up and get the hell out of Lexington. Thank you.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. Bravo. That was great.
Thank you.
That was great.
That wasn't rehearsed. That was just purely like.
No, that's right off the rip.
Okay, let's move very quickly on to things that are actually more fun and more positive. Your team squeaked out a little dub over Texas, and I know that was like, whoo, but
yeah.
You're marching on to take on Creighton. What was your takeaways from? Well, do we even need to talk about St. Peter's? I mean, like that was.
Oh, I guess like there was St. Peter's did something crazy a couple years ago, as you're well aware. And so I think there was probably a small bit of Tennessee fans who were like, "Ugh, don't want that to happen again to us. That would be the worst." And especially coming off the heels of our SEC tournament performance. So that St. Peter's game was just it was a cool drink of water. That is exactly what we wanted to see, is come out and from the jump kick St. Peter's tail. And that's what we did. Won by, I think it was 34.
I said that's a name your score game.
Totally.
I mean, got off the mat.
Saw some shots go in. Josiah saw a couple shots go in. It was just a beating across the board, which is what it should have been. So it was just encouraging to see, like, oh great, we're not gonna get embarrassed. We're not gonna stumble into a victory. No, we just kick their butt, move on, take care of business. That's exactly what we wanted to see. The Texas game was, that was a brutal watch, a brutal offensive performance for both teams, really. I will agree with local talk radio guy, former VFL Tennessee football player Jason Swain. He said a thing which I like. You can look at the box score and look at we won an NCAA tournament second round game shooting less than 34% from the field and 12% from three. I mean, that is about as bad a shooting performance as you can get, and you still won. And I think there were a few stats being thrown around about how teams that shoot that poorly, like under 35% field goal and under 15% from three, were 0-66 going in to that round of ball games. And now Tennessee is the only one that has shot that bad and still won. And that's where I started to mention Jason Swain. He said a thing where we shot poorly. I mean, that's putting it lightly. We shot horribly, but we didn't play horribly. And I think what I loved about that game was it, somewhere along the lines in the end of the first half, it was clear, and maybe this part of this was a Barnes decision. I'm sure a lot of it was a Zakai Ziegler decision because he is, our little general out there of the shots aren't falling. Yo, Jonas Adu, let's pick and roll Texas to death. And Ziegler, who again he didn't shoot that well, but I mean the guy facilitated that win with pick and roll, penetrate, get into the lane, finding guys open for little bunnies and jump shots and layups and clutch free throws down the stretch from Jonas Adu and Dalton Connect. Dalton Connect had that was one of probably his worst performance as a Tennessee player. Still had, maybe not the worst. He still had 18 points and hit a couple clutch shots down the stretch, but he only shot 5 of 18. He was 1 of 8 from 3. He had some good rebounds too, but it was super encouraging to watch Ziegler take control and just facilitate things for us to get points. Excuse me. And hit to make the shots when it counted most. Stave off Texas's kind of comeback. Played fantastic defense all game on Texas. Forced 17 turnovers in the game. So I mean the defense, a couple clutch shots at the end. You made your free throws when it counted. You got the job done, which at this point of the season, just win. I don't care how you do it, just win. So just overall, I agreed with Jason Swain's take. We shot horribly, but we did not play horribly because you won. End of the day, against a talented team in Texas.
Sure, 100%. I mean, they weren't in the tournament as a joke. I mean, they earned their way in. They fought, figured it out, and Tennessee just played a little bit better. It was very. It was like a nice round of applause of well done. You figured it out when you probably I'm sure there were Tennessee fans we're dead in the water. I mean, we shot 12% from 3. How do we win this game? It's you figured it out.
You have 25 from 3.
Yeah, and typically, if you're, the classic, if you told me that, I'm probably thinking we're not winning. I mean, probably 9 times out of 10, you don't win when you shoot 3 of 25 from the 3-point line in 2024 in today's game.
Mm-hmm.
But you figured it out. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's probably what Barnes told him is hey, bravo, you figured it out. We live to fight another day. We get to go home, rest, hit reset in the next game. Hey, I wouldn't be shocked if they end up as collectively as a team hit 13 or 14 threes. That wouldn't shock me.
I mean, I guess the last few games, Tennessee is kind of trending backwards offensively, kind of towards, sorry. Anyway, kind of trending backwards towards more of the Barnes teams of the last few years of we're going to play great defense. We're going to be good enough on offense versus kind of where we were in the middle of the season, just having a great season both offensively and defensively. So that was a touch concerning.
Sure.
But like you said, having a week to go home, get yourself right, I think it's going to make a big difference for this team.
Yeah. Then they're all going to be whew, hey, if we can pull that off, fellas, then we're good. You're talking about primarily older guys, right? They can all look at each other and be dang, my butthole's tight, but we're good. Ooh. We figured it out. Well, do you quickly want to I know that we did our picks before the tournament, but I think it's fun. It's all right, here's the matchups now. And then for some of them, it's probably I still take the same team that I picked originally, but I think for kicks and giggles, I think we just pick here's who I think would win this game now, even if it's the same. And then we'll end with Tennessee and Creighton. And then you can kind of give your thoughts on here's what I think about the game, if you have any. All right. So let's start with UConn and San Diego State, little rematch from last year's Final Four. Wait, they did play each other, didn't they? Or did San Diego State? Yeah, in the championship game. Yeah. That was a barn burner. I think I'm going to end up still sticking with UConn on that one. We said it. They're the steady Eddies. They just, I don't know how they lose.
Right now, they look like the best team in the tournament, best team in the world. UConn, definitely.
Yeah. Then we have Illinois and Iowa State, a little 2-3 matchup. It's going to be good. I'm probably going to roll. Well, I'll stick with my pick. I picked Iowa State.
This is going to be a crazy game, especially it's the number 1 rated offense in Illinois versus the number 1 rated defense in Iowa State. I think I'm going to lean Iowa State as well, just because they've proven they've beaten some really, really good teams this year. And Illinois, push comes to shove, they've not beaten anyone, I think, as good as Iowa State this year. So I'm going to say Iowa State. If the game ends up slowing down, Iowa State should win easily.
Okay. I like it. North Carolina and Alabama. This is tough because I'm kind of like, if Bama catches fire and goes nuclear, you don't think so. You're like, it's just Carolina, boom, call today.
Carolina.
Do you think now we've also seen when Bama, and we've talked about it, like when they're bad, they're bad. Because y'all thought Kentucky's defense was bad. Bama's right below them, and they're just slaw on defense. So
I don't trust Bama. Not against a team like North Carolina. They're too well coached, too balanced.
RJ Davis is probably gonna just run right past him. When your only player really for Bama is Marcus Sears.
Yeah.
That's probably Well,
I just think Carolina's too good, too disciplined. They're not going to fall into wanting to play crazy fast like Bama's going to try to dictate. That kudos to Bama. You've made it to the Sweet 16. I said I thought they're going to lose first round. But
sure.
I think they got a little bit of a favorable draw, catching Grand Canyon in the second round. But yeah, I don't think they're gonna do much against a team like Carolina.
Sure. Arizona and Clemson. You're not big on Arizona, as we talked about last time.
I wasn't big on either of these teams heading into this. I mean, Arizona they've looked legit. And I mean, so has Clemson to be fair. I think Caleb Love is one of the best players in the country. That's not groundbreaking, but I think he's the difference. And Arizona's played great defense too. Clemson doesn't have a player as close to as good as him. So I'll stick with Arizona.
Same. I'll roll Zona. Houston and Duke. Man, I hate to admit this. I think I'm going to pick Duke.
Wow. They've looked good. They've looked better than what a lot of people thought they were look.
I've got Houston in my bracket, but I think I don't know. I think there's something about I've just got a feeling with Houston's I feel like we've talked about it too. I mean, Houston's defense is elite, but man, when their offense isn't going, like they have a hard time scoring. And it's not impressive. They can run plays and they're super athletic, but man, like they do not score well from three. If they catch fire, kind of like any team, like they'll hit some threes, but otherwise, it's probably a wild take for the fact that they just scored 100 points against A&M. I think there's just something about Duke, Filipowski, the way they're playing right now. It's pretty impressive. I think I'm going to pick Duke.
I mean, I can't fault you too much. The way they were coming into the tournament, it didn't look great. They handled business against Vermont. Absolutely stomped on James Madison's throat. beat them by almost 40. So they're looking a lot stronger than they looked coming into the tournament. I just still don't buy them. If Houston is what I think they are in terms of being a championship caliber team, Duke might be able to give them a game. And if they won, I still wouldn't be surprised. But I just still don't think physically they can hang with a team that just puts the clamps down like Houston can do. They obviously didn't against A&M, and maybe that's a sign of concern. But I just don't think Duke's going to have enough physicality to keep up with Houston. So I'll stick with the Cougs.
Let's look at the I guess if you want to call it a little Cinderella matchup. We've got NC State, an 11 seed, taking on Marquette, the 2 seed. We ride with DJ
rolls
Burns.
on.
Is the pack going to be howling after this? DJ Burns, is he leading the pack? Or
I keep picking against them, and they keep winning. It has been so impressive to watch them. And you're also kind of going against a Marquette team that has had a lot of promise the last few years and fizzled out early. Did you know that Shaka Smart, the head coach for Marquette, this is the first time he's made the Sweet 16 since 2011 with VCU when he took them to the Final Four. He has not been back this far since 2011, and he's a great coach. So that was a little bit Shaka Smart getting the monkey off his back, beating Colorado in the second round. Tyler Kolek is the best player in this game. The way he took over their second round game against Colorado was very impressive because he's not like a very, physically gifted guard. He's just kind of a crafty lefty, smart, makes the right read, little jump hooks and floaters in the lane. If he's got control of the game like he did, I think to me this is going to toss up. I don't really have a strong feeling one way or the other. I think both teams are really good, and NC State obviously on the heater of all heaters. They've won 7 games in a span of like 11 days or something like that. I guess I'll lean Marquette based on talent, but not you though. Not you though.
Nah, dude. Let's go, DJ Burns. I want the big fella to keep tap dancing, floating like a fairy out there, doing his thing, drop 30 on him, and let the entire Marquette fan base know about it as he's, I was about to say flying up and down the court, but my man's got a mild jog.
I'll be rooting for it. He's so fun to watch.
He goes 3-point line to 3-point line. If you get him to go from baseline to baseline, that's probably the very beginning of the game. And maybe he had a shot of steroid real quick off the side. Otherwise, he ain't flying down the court. But when if you're pinned and he's got you and he's back into he's scoring. Just good luck. It doesn't even matter if you double team. He can throw out of the post. He's great passing the ball. I mean, he sees the floor. He's got it. So I'm rolling with the pack. Give me Burns.
I like it. You've probably convinced me to flip over. I'll go with the Wolfpack too.
All right.
Keep it going. Why not?
Why not? All right. Here's a little Matt Painter ball real quick. Purdue and Gonzaga. Does Mark Few, does he do it? And does Matt Painter in the Boilermakers flop again and not make it to? Or do you think
Gonzaga has looked very dominant? In at least they did in that first weekend. I mean, they won both their games handily. Obviously, McNeese, that was just a warm up for them. That wasn't serious at all. But they went out in the second half against Kansas. And I know Kansas is a little down this year, but they're still Kansas. They still have one of the best coaches ever in Bill Self and Hunter Dickinson out there, and Gonzaga boat raced them in the second half.
Yeah.
I think Purdue is so scared of losing. I'm picking Gonzaga. I picked them to start before the bracket started. Purdue has looked good. Obviously, I mean, how Purdue has looked. They are obviously one of the best teams. They're a 1 seed for a reason. They have dominated all year. Well, I don't know, though. I don't know.
I'm going to stick with Purdue only because I think the fix is in. They want Zach Edey to the Final Four. The nice little storyline, kiss on the cheek for Matt Painter. And honestly, I'm only taking Purdue because Zach Edey's they're going to call 30 fouls on Gonzaga, even when 15 of them aren't actually fouls. It's just purely get the ball to Zach Edey and they'll just call a foul. Because
It's
rest,
gross.
whatever. They're like, well, he's 7'3". Like, of course, and, it's the classic, like, they're fouling him every time he touches the ball. And it's like, no, they're not. Are there some plays they are? Sure, some, but not every single time he touches the ball does he get fouled. But
it's gross. It's so boring to watch. And they get double the foul calls every game. It's brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
So I'm going to stick with Purdue because I think the fix is in, like I said. All right, last game. The one that everybody's going to be waiting on, a little 10:09 tip-off Friday night.
Brutal.
I will stay up for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to go to bed like the Houston and A&M game where I was like, I think Houston will probably handle this one. I'm not going to worry about it. What's your thoughts? Thoughts on Creighton? I know that first off, from the last episode, I did pick Creighton. However, I'm going to go live and say I'm taking Tennessee, even though my bracket says different. But I want you to give your pitch as to, like, what are you thinking? Does Baylor Shireman scare you? Maybe doesn't at all. Maybe you're like, we just shut down Baylor. We're good. I don't know.
I mean, Creighton's a good team.
Sure.
And there's plenty to be scared of. I mean, they have got 4 guys who average double figures in points. Baylor Shireman, Trey Alexander, the 2 guards, Ryan Kalkbrenner, their center, who was I think he was Defensive Player of the Year in the Big East. I mean, he averages 17 points, 7 rebounds, 3 blocks a game. I mean, he's a lot. And then the little point guard Stephen Ashworth. I mean, he's scrappy and good free throw shooter, and they're going to throw 4 guys at you who can all score, and usually all do score. They're all, I think they're all upperclassmen too. Who, I mean, they came as close as it gets last year to going to the Final Four and brought almost the whole team back. They shoot really well. They're a great 3-point shooting team, great free throw shooting team. They play kind of a slower pace. They're not trying to speed you up. They don't foul very much. They're pretty disciplined on defense. But to me, I think Tennessee's favored by a couple points right now. And the fact to all year, the teams that Tennessee has had problems with are the physical, speeded up, out muscle us in the post. That is not Creighton. That is not what they try to do. That is not their game plan. And to me, I mean, the pace is a big difference, but like they kind of play a little, I mean, they're a jump shooting team, kind of like Bama, kind of like Kentucky at times this year. I think we match up well against them. I think we're going to be able to physically we're so disciplined on defense. And I have a feeling that we're going to be able to work with whatever they try to do on off. Now, they might come out and just make everything. And that's sometimes, so be it. If, you'll tip your cap to that. I just think defensively, we're going to be able to match what they try to do. And the fact that their game plan is not to try to out-physical you, I love that for us. Now on offense, I mean, they play pretty good defense too. I think really this game is pretty close to a toss-up. But my goodness, we just won with the most god-awful shooting performance of that I've seen us all year.
anything better than that,
Yeah.
especially from Connect, I feel like we should win this game. It's going to be hard, and I think Creighton is a good team with a really good coach. They're a deep team too, at least with their 4 big guys. I feel like this is a game we should still win though, and I feel pretty confident about it, just purely off of style of play. What they try to do, we have shown success in defending. And if the offense, golly, just shoot better, just shoot a little better than what you did. And I don't even necessarily think we need to shoot better by that much. But Connects do. I feel like it's been since the Kentucky loss at home that he's, obviously we all had a terrible game against Mississippi State. Didn't really need him to do much. I think he had 23 in the St. Peter's game. Had a for him a bad performance against Texas. It's time for Dalton Connect to like, hey, this guy was All-American SEC Player of the Year for a reason.
Yep,
buddy, take us home, Dalton.
it's time.
Do the thing. So yeah, Tennessee gonna win this game. It's gonna be tough. I think Creighton's good, but we're better.
I'm gonna call my shot. I think Connect gets at least 30 points. I think
Come on.
Zakai and Triple J both score in double digits.
Love it.
Vescovy hits at least 3 threes. I think that wins you the game. Adu, whatever he offers you, you know what I mean? Hey, if he gets double digits, but I'm going to say he probably gets 8 points or so, but it gives you double digits in rebounds, probably 4 blocks.
I think a big thing for us on defense, especially, is going to be we can't get into foul trouble.
Sure,
we can't send these guys to the line. 3 of the 4 guys I mentioned all shoot over 80% from the free throw line. This is not a team that is going to lose at the free throw line. They make their free throws. Free throws are big in March. They were big for us against Texas. Make your free throws. This team does. Don't send them to the line. So that's Tobe Awaka. You got to play more disciplined. Can't be too aggressive. Now, obviously, part of what makes him such a good player is his aggressiveness. But you got to stay within yourself. Can't be hacking and fouling. Right. No stupid fouls.
Just play hard nosed defense.
I love that we've got a week to prepare for this.
Yep.
And I think Tennessee also does better. We do better in these big games against big opponents than we do against teams that, oh yeah, we should go out and crush these guys.
Sure.
That's usually when we do better against better competition, usually. So
get up.
Come on, go to the Elite Eight. Do it. It's only happened once.
Go to the Elite Eight and then end Matt Painter's run once again. Hey, I'm saying it because I want to send the text to you and the fellas and say, get in the car.
I want to see Dalton Connect dunk on Zach Edey so bad. So bad.
That'll be Vince Carter-esque in the Olympics. When he dunks.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm dreaming. Just, hey, guys, get in the car.
One at a time. Just let's be Creighton. Let's be Creighton.
Start with Creighton. But, hey, start with Creighton. All right. You got anything else?
Nope.
Cool. Me either. I don't have anything else for JVC. He can pack his crap. I'm tired of seeing his face. Just get the bad man out of Lexington. Hey, and if anybody has any ways of getting him out, call me. Let me know. I'm happy to help. At this point, I don't really know what else to offer. I can give to your GoFundMe. If you're like, hey, if you give to my GoFundMe, I will get the bad man out of Lexington. Just tell me. Send me the link. I'll pay. All right. I'm Big Poppa.
Bobby Hoops.
That's Bobby Hoops. Love you guys. See you.
See you.